Welcome to the Golden Mike Minute. I'm your host, Mitch Carl. We're going to be looking back at the winners for last night's MLB DFS slate, trying to emulate their success going forward. Now, we talk about short-term sample sizes and how important they can be when thinking about how to construct your lineup. While we do identify these short-term samples, I do think it is important to mention that the long-term strategies that we know have been successful over the years in certain DFS sports is also something to keep in mind when you're building your lineups. Now, we need to focus on short-term trends because DFS is an ever-shifting landscape. It can change for a week or two on what's working when building lineups based on a myriad of factors. Is the weather funky? Are teams playing in certain fields? Are certain pitchers out or in? Are there lineups that are decimated by injuries? Things like that can shift the results in a tournament on any given one individual unique day. That's what makes daily fantasy sports so fun. It's always changing. This stream every single day, this podcast every single day, is to identify those things while keeping in mind some of those long-term strategies that often will put you in a good spot to be successful. Let's go. All right, last night's winner again is a 150 max player. So we're going to review their lineup, see how they went about doing it, compare them versus the field, look at their player pool, their exposures on each stacks, and the usage rate on their stacks and players individually. Again, 2-player stacks, highest used last night, 68.7% of the field used a 2-player stack in this $175,000 relay throw, which had 13,725 entries. So out of 13K entries, 9,500 used 2-player stacks. The next highest used was 5-player, as usual. This is the same setup we see every single day. While the numbers, the frequency of usage on each of these stack sizes does change, the order does not. 2-player stacks are the most used, 5-player stacks are the next, 3 players is the third most used, and then 4-player stacks are always at the bottom as the least used stack. That is something that probably was reversed about 4 years ago, but things have changed. Now, the first place finisher stacked 10 different teams yesterday. There were 10 teams on the slate, so they ended up using all 10 teams, and they had 90 players, which is about average when you're looking at those top 20 or so teams. You see anywhere between 70 to 90 in how many players they were using. Taking a quick glance to see if they made any significant stands based on ownership, and they did. One of them was Garrett Cole, who was absolutely wrecked in the third inning, was yanked. He ended up losing you 8.75 fantasy points, a minus 8.75. Gave up 5 home runs in 3 innings. I think 3 in the first inning. And he was 51.9% owned in the tournament. And the first place finisher used the highest owned pitcher who lost 8.75 points for every single lineup. He used him in 72% of all his rosters he constructed. So 72% of his 150 lineups had a Garrett Cole lineup. That's crazy because he still won the tournament. Again, we've talked about this in the past. Pitchers will not win you a tournament. What they can do is lose you a lineup. 72% of his lineups were lost because of Garrett Cole. He still had the ability to win a tournament, and he did. Where you win your tournaments is your stacks. And let's go check out his. So his highest used stack construction were 5-player stacks. He had 116 lineups with 5-player stacks. And Baltimore Orioles, 22% of all his 5-player stacks were the Baltimore Orioles. Then he had the Boston Red Sox, 16%, Royals, 16%, Yankees, 12%. And, well, you know what's interesting? The 5-player stack didn't even win him the tournament. His winning tournament lineup was, in fact, his 4-player stacks, his least used. Only had 52 total 4-player stacks, and interestingly enough, it was a game stack of the Twins and Yankees. And I found this very interesting because here's the concept. 72% of all his lineups had Garrett Cole, meaning 28% did not. In those 28% of those games where Garrett Cole was not included, he actually used the Minnesota Twins a total of 16 times. So 16 out of the 28 lineups without Garrett Cole, he stacked the Twins. It was almost a hedge against his highest investment on the slate, which was Garrett Cole. He hedged his investment with almost a, what would that be? 15% hedge on Twins stacks. And one of his Twin stacks won him the tournament. He had a 4-player Twin stack and a 4-player Yankee stack, which ended up being his highest owned stack combination at the 4-4 level. He had 18 4-4 stacks. 3 of them were the Minnesota Twins and New York Yankees game stack. He used 3 out of his 18 4-4s. The actual winning lineup itself was Max Fried and Shohei Ohtani, who combined for 82% ownership rate. And then he had a Jose Trevino, DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Hicks, Joey Gallo Yankee stack with Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, Jorge Polanco, and Luis Arias for the Twins 4-4 stack. Now, the one big takeaway for today, I like it a lot actually. If you end up using a high percentage of a single pitcher, let's say 72% of Garrett Cole, it's not a bad idea to hedge your investment a little bit by using some large stacks of the opposing hitting team. So if you roll out 7 out of every 10 lineups being that pitcher, maybe you roll out 1 out of every 10 being a large 4 or 5-player stack of the opposing hitting team. If the pitcher goes nuclear, well, great. 7 out of every 10 lineups is in a good spot to have a profit. If the pitcher gets shelled, especially if they're higher owned, well, 1 out of every 10 of your lineups is in a good spot to take down the tournament. It's a really interesting way to build, and I like it. Tune back in. Next episode, we'll be covering more of these stack sizes. Any takeaways we will highlight, and we're going to get better together. I'll see you on the inside, my friends. Let's get paid.